The crystal halls of Prime stretched across 3 mountains, built from materials that no human scientist could name. Light passed through the walls like water through glass, painting everything in soft blue and silver. Once every 100 years, the elder species of the galaxy gathered here to discuss matters of great importance: trade routes, border disputes, the fate of young worlds. Today, they gathered to laugh. Ambassador Kella of the Dominion stood at the center of the grand chamber. Her body was tall and thin, with skin that shifted colors like oil on water. Behind her, a massive screen displayed images of a small blue planet orbiting an ordinary yellow star. Earth, the third rock from the sun in a system the galaxy had forgotten existed. "Observe," Kella said, her voice carrying a tone of amusement. "The humans." The screen showed cities, wars, pollution clouds rising from factories, a species that had barely touched its own moon and called it a great achievement. Laughter rippled through the assembly. Hundreds of representatives from dozens of species watched the footage like it was entertainment. The Imperium's delegates, massive creatures with armored bodies and 4 arms, slapped their hands together in what passed for applause. The Shen Collective, beings of pure energy contained in crystalline forms, flickered with what might have been amusement. "They still burn dead plants for energy," Kella continued. "They fight over invisible lines they drew on their own ground. They poison the air they need to breathe. And yet, they believe they are the only intelligent life in the universe." More laughter, louder now. High Arbiter of the Shen Collective dimmed slightly, a gesture that meant he was thinking. He had lived for 9,000 years and had seen many primitive species on that screen. Most of them were now dust. A few had been elevated into the galactic community. None had ever impressed him. But something about the humans made him pause. He could not say what. "What is the recommendation?" asked the Admiral, his voice like grinding stone. "Observation, cleansing." Kella waved one delicate hand. "Continued observation. They are decades away from detecting our arrays, perhaps centuries. Let them provide entertainment a while longer." The vote passed easily. Earth would remain in quarantine, a zoo exhibit, a joke told at fancy parties. The assembly moved on to other business. No one noticed when Sform flickered once more, this time with something that looked almost like doubt. 8,000 light-years away, Lieutenant Commander 1 sat in a small monitoring station outside Seoul. The room was dark except for the glow of computer screens. Empty coffee cups covered his desk. His eyes hurt from staring at data streams for 12 hours straight. Something was wrong with the moon. Not the moon itself, the space around it. For 3 nights now, his instruments had detected a shimmer in lunar orbit, a distortion that appeared for exactly 47 seconds, then vanished. Always in the same location, always at the same time. Natural phenomena did not behave this way. He called Doctor at 2 in the morning. She answered on the first ring, which did not surprise him, never seemed to sleep. Her mind was always running, always calculating, always reaching toward questions no one else thought to ask. "I found something," one said. 30 minutes later, she stood beside him in the monitoring station, her dark hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, her glasses reflecting the screen light. She ran the numbers herself. Once, twice, 3 times. Her face went pale. "This is not natural," she said quietly. "I know. This is not from Earth. I know." Sat down slowly, her eyes never leaving the screen. The shimmer appeared again, right on schedule. 47 seconds of impossible light bending around something that should not exist. "Someone is watching us," she whispered. One had spent 20 years in military intelligence. He had learned to trust his instincts, and his instincts were screaming now. Whatever was hiding near the moon had been there for a long time, maybe longer than humanity had existed. And if they could hide that well, they were far more advanced than anything Earth could build. The question was simple: What did they want? We need to tell someone, said. Who? The government. They will want proof. The United Nations. They will want meetings and committees and years of discussion. By then, whoever is watching us might decide to do more than watch. Was quiet for a long moment. Then she did something that surprised one. She smiled. What if we skip all of that? What do you mean? They are watching us. They think we do not know. What if we show them that we do? One stared at her. You want to signal them. I want to raise our hand, like a student in a classroom who has finally noticed the teacher standing in the back of the room, pushed her glasses up her nose. They think we are primitive. They think we are blind. Let us show them we are neither. It was insane. It was dangerous. It could trigger an invasion, a war, the end of human civilization. But one looked at the shimmer on his screen, and he realized something important. The beings watching Earth had already decided that humanity was not worth respecting. They laughed at human wars and human struggles. They saw humans as zoo animals. Maybe it was time to show them that the animals had teeth. How would you do it? He asked. Smile widened. Gravitational waves, the same technology they use to watch us. I can design a signal that proves we understand their science, a mathematical proof embedded in spacetime itself. Can you build it? Not alone, but I know people, physicists, engineers, people who have been asking the same questions I have, people who are tired of pretending we are alone when every instinct says we are not. She turned to face one directly. Her eyes were bright with something that might have been fear or excitement or both. The question is simple, Commander. Do we stay quiet and hope they leave us alone? Or do we raise our hand and show the galaxy that humanity is awake? One thought about his daughter, 7 years old, who loved looking at the stars. He thought about all the children on Earth who dreamed of exploring space, not knowing that space had been exploring them for thousands of years. He thought about what it meant to be laughed at by creatures who did not even consider you worth meeting. Raise the hand, he said. Nodded once. Then she turned back to the computer and began to type. 8,000 light-years away in the crystal halls of Prime, Ambassador Kella prepared her final report on Earth. Continued observation. No significant developments. The primitives remained primitive. She did not know that everything was about to change. She did not know that a quiet woman in a small room in Seoul had just raised humanity's hand. And the galaxy would never laugh at Earth again. The signal took 3 months to build, worked in secret with a team of 12 physicists from 7 countries. They met in basements and empty laboratories. They communicated through coded messages. They told no one what they were building. The device itself was small enough to fit in a shipping container, but what it could do had never been done before in human history. It could create ripples in spacetime itself, gravitational waves that would travel across the universe at the speed of light. More importantly, it could send a message. Design the signal with careful precision. It was not a greeting. It was not a plea for contact. It was something far more dangerous. It was proof. The signal contained a mathematical theorem that could only be understood by a species that had mastered gravity manipulation. Embedded within that theorem was a simple statement. We see your observation satellites. We know their positions. We know you are watching. On a cold night in November, one stood beside in an underground facility in the mountains of South Korea. The device hummed with power. Screens showed data streams that most humans could not read. Are you ready? One asked. His hand hovered over the activation switch. She did not look ready. She looked terrified, but she also looked determined. We cannot take this back, she said. Once we send this, everything changes. Everything already changed the moment we saw that shimmer. We just did not know it yet. Closed her eyes. She thought about her parents, who had died believing humanity was alone in the universe. She thought about all the years she had spent studying physics, chasing questions that seemed to have no answers. She thought about what it meant to be part of a species that someone else considered a joke. She opened her eyes and pressed the switch. The device activated. The signal launched into space, riding waves of bent gravity traveling toward the moon and beyond. There was no explosion, no flash of light, just a quiet hum that faded into silence. "It is done," whispered. 8,000 light-years away, alarms began to sound in the crystal halls of Prime. Ambassador Kella was in her private quarters when the emergency summons arrived. She dressed quickly and hurried to the assembly chamber, where chaos had already taken hold. Delegates shouted at each other. Screens displayed data that made no sense. "What is happening?" she demanded. High Arbiter floated toward her, his crystalline form pulsing with urgent light. "The primitives," he said. "The humans, they have sent a signal." "Impossible. They do not have the technology." "They do now." Gestured toward the main screen. It showed the signal's contents, the mathematical proof, the list of satellite positions, the simple, devastating message, "We know you are watching." Kella felt something she had not felt in centuries: fear. "This must be a malfunction," she said. "An accident. Perhaps one of our own probes malfunctioned and they detected the debris." "No." His voice was calm, but there was something new in it, something that sounded almost like respect. "The signal is intentional. The mathematics are precise. They did not stumble upon our satellites by accident. They found them. They studied them. And now they are telling us that they know." The chamber fell silent. For 10,000 years, the Galactic Assembly had watched primitive worlds develop. Never once had a quarantined species detected the observation arrays. Never once had a primitive world sent a message that said, "We see you." Until now. "What do we do?" asked the Admiral. His voice was no longer amused, it was worried. "We reposition the satellites," Kella said quickly. "Move them further from Earth. The humans will think they imagined it. They will doubt their own findings. We continue observation as normal." Flickered, and if they did not imagine it, what then? Kella had no answer. On Earth, one did not wait for the galaxy to respond. He knew that sending the signal was only the first step. If advanced aliens truly existed, and if they truly had been watching Earth, then humanity needed to prepare for whatever came next. He reached out to contacts in military intelligence across the world, old friends, trusted allies, people who knew how to keep secrets. Within weeks, a covert coalition had formed. 12 nations, 40 specialists. One mission: understand the Watchers before the Watchers decided to act. Major Jin joined the coalition as one second in command. She was 34 years old, sharp-minded and unafraid of difficult truths. She had spent 10 years studying unconventional threats, situations that governments preferred to pretend did not exist. Now she had found the most unconventional threat of all. "We have intercepted fragments of their communications," she reported during a secure meeting. "S team has been analyzing them." And one asked, "They are talking about us, a lot. The signal has caused panic in their leadership. They did not expect this." "Good, what else?" Jin hesitated. "There is debate among them. Some want to make contact. Others want to destroy us before we become a threat." The room went quiet. One had expected this possibility. Humanity had done the same thing throughout history. When faced with something unknown and potentially dangerous, some people wanted to understand it. Others wanted to eliminate it. "How much time do we have?" he asked. "Unknown, but I do not think it will be long." Spoke up from her corner of the room. She had been quiet throughout the meeting, studying data on her tablet. "I have been analyzing their satellite network. There are gaps, blind spots, places they cannot see." "Useful for hiding," Jin said. "Useful for more than that." Looked up. "I can map every satellite in our solar system, every observation array, every communication relay. If we send that information in our next signal, they will know exactly how much we understand. One frowned. That is risky. We would be showing them our capabilities. We would be showing them that we are not afraid, that we have studied them as carefully as they have studied us, that we are not animals in a zoo waiting to be fed. The debate lasted 2 hours. In the end, they voted to send the second signal. This time did not hesitate. She pressed the switch with a steady hand. The signal launched into space, carrying detailed maps of the alien surveillance network, every satellite, every array, every blind spot, a message that said we are not only awake, we are watching you too. In the crystal halls of Prime, Ambassador Kella received the second signal during a diplomatic dinner. She read the contents and dropped her glass. Wine spilled across the table like blood. The laughter that had echoed through the assembly for centuries finally stopped. High Arbiter observed the chaos with ancient, patient eyes. He had lived long enough to see empires rise and fall. He had watched species climb from caves to stars, but he had never seen anything like this. The humans were not behaving like a primitive species. They were behaving like hunters, patient, careful, strategic. And hunters knew were always more dangerous than prey. He began to wonder if the galaxy had made a terrible mistake. The diplomatic vessel arrived in Earth orbit on a morning in March. It was beautiful in the way that dangerous things are often beautiful. Smooth silver curves, lights that pulsed like heartbeats, technology so advanced that human scientists could only stare and guess at how it worked. Ambassador Kella stood at the observation window of her ship, looking down at the blue planet below. She had spent the journey preparing her approach. The humans had proven themselves clever, but clever was not the same as powerful. They had detected the satellites. They had sent impressive signals, but they were still primitives. They still needed things that they could offer. All Kella had to do was make them understand their place. The meeting location was a flat stretch of desert in Australia, far from cities and cameras. One had chosen it carefully. Open ground, clear sight lines, no place for surprises. He stood at the center of the human delegation, flanked by Jin on his left and on his right. Behind them stood representatives from every major nation on Earth. Presidents and generals had wanted to attend themselves, but one had refused. This moment was too important for politics. It needed soldiers and scientists, people who would not be impressed by alien lights and alien promises. The shuttle descended like a falling leaf, silent and graceful. It touched the desert floor without raising a single grain of sand. The door opened, and Ambassador Kella walked out. She was taller than any human, with limbs that bent in ways that seemed wrong to human eyes. Her skin shifted through shades of purple and blue as she moved. 2 guards flanked her, massive creatures with too many eyes and not enough expression. Kella stopped 10 feet from the human delegation. She looked at them the way a teacher might look at students who had caused trouble but could still be corrected. "I am Ambassador Kella of the Dominion," she said. Her voice was smooth and confident. "We have come to welcome humanity to the galactic community." One did not bow, he did not smile, he simply nodded once. "I am Commander One of the Earth Coalition. We are prepared to listen." Kella's skin flickered with slight annoyance. She had expected more ceremony, more gratitude. These primitives had just learned they were not alone in the universe. They should be on their knees. "Your signals were impressive," Kella admitted. "Few species have detected our observation network. The Galactic Assembly has decided that Earth deserves special consideration." "Special consideration meaning what exactly?" Jin asked. Her voice was polite but cold. Kella smiled, showing teeth that were too white and too sharp. "Membership, trade, technology, access to resources beyond anything your planet can provide. The galaxy offers many gifts to those who join peacefully." "And what does the galaxy ask in return?" spoke now, her voice quiet but clear. "Cooperation, integration, a willingness to accept guidance from species with more experience. Kella paused. And of course, disarmament. The galaxy does not allow new members to maintain weapons that could threaten stability. Silence fell over the desert. The wind blew sand against boots and alien metal alike. One had expected this. He had studied enough history to know how powerful civilizations treated weaker ones. They offered gifts with one hand and chains with the other. They spoke of peace while building prisons. "Tell me, Ambassador," said, "how many species have accepted your guidance?" Kella's skin shifted to a confident gold. 17. All of them now enjoy the benefits of galactic civilization. And how many of those species still govern themselves? The gold faltered. Self-governance is a complex matter. Young species often need help managing their affairs. Help repeated, or control. Kella's smile disappeared. "I would be careful, human. They offer friendship. The Imperium offers something else entirely. If you refuse our guidance, you will face them alone." "We have faced enemies alone before," one said. "We have faced each other. For 10,000 years, humanity has been at war with itself. We have survived plagues, famines, bombs that could destroy cities. We have rebuilt from ashes more times than we can count." He stepped forward, closing the distance between himself and the alien ambassador. "You think that threatens us? You think we fear conflict?" Kella's guards moved forward, but she raised a hand to stop them. Her eyes locked with one's. For the first time, she saw something in the human that made her uncertain. "You cannot win against this," she said. "They have conquered 100 worlds. Their fleet numbers in the thousands." "Maybe," one said, "but we do not measure victory by survival alone. We measure it by what we refuse to surrender." Jin stepped forward now, standing beside her commander. "Humanity declines your offer, Ambassador. We will not disarm. We will not accept guidance that looks suspiciously like control. And we will not become the 17th species to trade freedom for safety." Kella stared at them. In 3,000 years of diplomacy, no primitive species had ever refused guidance. They begged. They negotiated. They eventually accepted. But these humans stood in the desert sand and said no as if they had nothing to lose. "You are making a terrible mistake," Kella said. "They will come. They will burn your cities and harvest your people for labor. They do not negotiate with species that reject the Assembly's protection." Jin smiled. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone who had already calculated the cost of war and decided to pay it anyway. "Then let them come," she said. "We have been preparing for war since before your species learned to walk. Every generation of humanity has known conflict. Every child learns that the universe is dangerous and that survival must be earned. You see our history as weakness. We see it as training." Kella took a step back. She had expected fear. She had expected desperation. Instead, she found something that disturbed her far more. "Certainty." "They will destroy you," she said. "Perhaps," answered, "but we will make it cost them. And when they count their dead, they will remember the price of underestimating a species that refuses to kneel." Kella returned to her shuttle without another word. The silver ship rose into the sky and vanished beyond the clouds. The human delegation watched it go in silence. One let out a breath he did not know he had been holding. His hands were shaking, but his voice was steady when he spoke. "They will come. She was not lying about that." "I know," Jin said. "How long do we have?" "Months, maybe less." Looked up at the sky, where the alien ship had disappeared. Somewhere out there, a fleet was being assembled. Weapons were being prepared. An empire that had crushed 100 worlds was turning its attention toward Earth. "Then we have work to do," she said. One nodded. He turned to face the gathered representatives of Earth, politicians and soldiers, scientists and strategists, enemies who had become allies because the universe had given them no other choice. "Go home," he told them. "Tell your governments what happened here. Tell them that war is coming. and tell them that for the first time in human history, we will fight not as nations but as a species." The representatives scattered. Messages flew across the globe. Within hours, every leader on Earth knew the truth. The galaxy had come to claim humanity, and humanity had raised its fist. The Third Fleet arrived in Earth's solar system on a Tuesday morning. 800 warships, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. They appeared near Jupiter first, a swarm of dark metal that blocked out the stars. Sensors across Earth screamed warnings. Satellites detected energy signatures that measurement. The invasion had begun. Admiral of the Imperium stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Unbroken Fist. He was massive even by standards, with 4 arms from 100 battles and eyes that had watched worlds burn. He had conquered thee in 3 days. He had shattered the Meth Confederation in a week. Earth would fall even faster. "Begin approach," he ordered. "Standard subjugation pattern. Destroy their orbital infrastructure. Eliminate military targets. Leave the population centers intact for harvesting." His fleet moved toward Earth like a wave of death. On the surface, one stood in a command center buried deep beneath the mountains of Korea. Screens covered every wall showing the approaching fleet. Numbers scrolled past, ship counts, weapon estimates, projected casualties. The numbers were not good. "They will reach weapons range in 6 hours, Jin reported. "Our conventional defenses cannot stop them. We would need 1,000 times more ships." "Then it is a good thing we are not relying on conventional defenses." One pressed a button on his console. "Are you ready?" His voice came through the speakers, calm and steady. She was aboard a station hidden on the dark side of the moon, operating equipment that had taken 50 years to build in secret. "Ready. Project Aegis is online. Mirror Protocol is standing by." One allowed himself a small smile. The galaxy thought Earth was defenseless. They thought humanity had nothing but primitive rockets and nuclear weapons. They were wrong. For decades, human scientists had been capturing alien observation drones that malfunctioned near Earth. Officially, these events never happened. Unofficially, teams of engineers had been taking apart that technology and learning its secrets. They could not build ships as advanced as but they had learned something more valuable. They had learned how to turn the enemy's weapons against themselves. "All units prepare for engagement," one broadcast. "Remember your training, remember why we fight, and remember that the galaxy is watching." The fleet crossed Mars' orbit. Admiral felt the familiar pleasure of approaching conquest. The human world glowed blue and green on his screens, soft and fragile. So many resources, so much potential labor. The Imperium would profit greatly from this harvest. "Unknown energy signatures detected," one of his officers reported. "Source unknown, multiple locations across the human solar system." Waved one massive hand. "Primitive tricks. They detected our satellites and think they understand our technology. They understand nothing." The fleet continued forward. Mercury fell behind them. Venus passed on their left. Earth grew larger on the screens. Then the ocean erupted. Across Earth's surface, hidden platforms rose from beneath the waves. Antarctic ice cracked and fell away to reveal launch facilities. Mountains opened to show weapons that had been waiting for generations. The dark side of the moon lit up with power signatures that rivaled small stars. Project Aegis was alive. Admiral watched his tactical display fill with new contacts. The humans had weapons, real weapons, not primitive rockets or chemical explosives, energy-based systems, gravitational manipulators, technology that should have been impossible for a quarantined species. "Impossible," he breathed. "Where did they get this?" "From you," came a voice on an open frequency. "This is Admiral Ho of the Earth Defense Fleet. You have been watching us for 10,000 years. Did you think we were not paying attention?" His 4 hands clenched into fists. "It does not matter. Your weapons cannot match ours. You are outnumbered 800 to 1. Surrender now and I will spare your cities." "No." The simple word hung in the silence of space. Then Dai said, "All ships open fire." 800 warships unleashed their weapons. Beams of energy crossed the void. Missiles launched by the thousands. The combined firepower could have shattered moons. And then activated the Mirror Protocol. The technology had taken her team 3 years to develop. It used the same gravitational manipulation that powered the alien observation satellites, but modified for a different purpose. Instead of bending light to watch, it bent energy to reflect. The weapons reached Earth's defensive perimeter and curved backward. On the bridge of the Unbroken Fist, Admiral watched his own missiles race back toward his fleet. His own energy beams struck his own ships. The forward elements of his formation disappeared in explosions of their own making. 200 ships died in the first minute, not from human weapons, from their own. "What is happening?" roared. "What did they do?" "Unknown, Admiral. Our weapons are being redirected, some kind of gravitational field." Understood, finally, and too late. The humans had not just detected the observation satellites. They had studied them, mastered them, and found a use for that technology that no one in the galaxy had ever considered. They had turned the galaxy's eyes into a shield. "All ships cease fire. Reconfigure weapons to alternate frequencies." But the human fleet was already moving. Admiral Ho commanded from the bridge of the Earth's flagship, a vessel built in secret over 20 years from reverse-engineered alien technology. It was smaller than any ship. It was also faster. "All units engage," Ho ordered. "Target their command ships. Show them what humanity can do." The battle lasted 4 hours. 4 hours of fire and death and the screaming of metal in the void. The fleet had never faced an enemy that could turn their own weapons against them. They could not adapt. They could not overcome. When it was over, 200 more ships had been destroyed. The rest fled toward the outer planets, their formation broken, their confidence shattered. Admiral stood on his damaged bridge, surrounded by the bodies of his crew. Smoke filled the air. Alarms screamed from every console. His flagship was crippled but still alive, retreating with the remnants of his once proud fleet. He opened a channel. "Human Commander, what are you?" Ho's response was broadcast on all frequencies, reaching not just the fleet but every listening post in the galaxy. His voice was calm, steady, without anger or triumph. "We are humanity. We did not start this war, but understand this, Admiral. We finish every war we fight. It is not a boast. It is history. Every time our species has faced extinction, we have survived. Every enemy that thought us weak has learned the truth too late. You came here expecting an easy harvest. Instead, you found the one thing the galaxy never expected." "And what is that?" asked, his voice broken. "A species that has been preparing for war its entire existence. Every famine made us stronger. Every plague made us more resilient. Every war we fought among ourselves taught us new ways to kill. You laughed at our conflicts. You called us primitive. But those conflicts were our training ground. And now you understand why." His flagship crossed Saturn's orbit, still running. Behind him, the debris of 400 warships drifted in the void. The greatest defeat the Imperium had suffered in 1,000 years. On Earth, celebrations began. Fireworks lit the skies. People wept with relief and terror and pride. Humanity had won. But one did not celebrate. He stood in the command center, watching the retreating fleet, and he knew that this was only the beginning. "They will come back," Jin said, standing beside him, "with more ships, more weapons." "Yes. Are we ready?" One thought about, still on the lunar station, already working on the next generation of defenses. He thought about Ho, whose fleet was damaged but unbroken. He thought about all the humans who had fought and died to win this first battle. "No," he said honestly, but we never are and we win anyway. Jin smiled. It was a tired smile, but a real one. Then let them come. In the crystal halls of Prime, the news of the defeat spread like wildfire. A primitive species, a quarantine world. They had shattered the Third Fleet. They had sent the mighty Imperium running. Ambassador Kella stood in the chamber, watching the footage of the battle, ships exploding, weapons turning back on their owners, the impossible becoming real. High Arbiter floated beside her. "You were right about one thing," he said. "They were not ready to join the galactic community." Kella said nothing. "They were never going to accept our guidance," continued. "They were never going to become a client species. They have spent their entire existence fighting for survival, and they have become something we did not expect." "What?" Kella asked. His crystalline form pulsed with ancient light. "Survivors, not the kind we elevate and control, the kind that cannot be controlled, the kind that fights until they win or die, the kind the galaxy has not seen in 10,000 years." Kella felt the fear return, stronger than before. "What do we do?" Was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke the words that would echo through the assembly for generations. "We hope they are merciful, because if they are not, nothing in this galaxy can stop them." The Galactic Assembly reconvened 6 months after the Battle of Earth. The crystal halls of Prime had never been so crowded. Representatives from 300 species filled the chamber. Some had come out of curiosity, others out of fear. A few had come because they wanted to see the impossible with their own eyes. At the center of the chamber, a seat that had been empty for 10,000 years now held its first occupant. Sat straight-backed in the human delegation's chair. She wore no ceremonial robes like the other ambassadors. She carried no gifts like those who sought favor. She wore simple clothes and watched the chamber with quiet eyes that gave away nothing. One stood behind her, wearing his military uniform. Jin stood at his side. Admiral Ho waited near the entrance, his presence a reminder of what had happened to the last fleet that threatened Earth. The assembly had spent hours arguing before arrived. The demanded reparations for the insult to their diplomatic mission. The demanded sanctions for the destruction of their fleet. Smaller species whispered among themselves, wondering if humanity was a threat or an opportunity. Ambassador Kella rose to speak. Her skin shifted through angry shades of red. "The humans attacked the fleet without provocation. They used stolen technology to murder thousands of Imperial soldiers. They must be punished." Without provocation, Jin stepped forward, her voice cutting through the chamber like a blade. "Your fleet crossed into our solar system with weapons armed. Your admiral announced his intention to burn our cities and harvest our people for slave labor. That is provocation. Our response was self-defense." Kella's colors shifted to an uncomfortable purple. "The Imperium has the right to manage primitive species. Earth should have accepted guidance when it was offered." "Guidance?" spoke for the first time. Her voice was soft, but somehow it filled the entire chamber. "That is an interesting word for what you offered us." The assembly fell silent. All eyes turned to the human woman in the center of the room. She was not tall. She was not physically imposing. But something in the way she moved made even the largest species in the room pay attention. "I have studied your records," she said. "The assembly keeps detailed files on every species it has contacted, every world it has observed, every civilization it has elevated." She paused. "And every species it has destroyed." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Kella's colors went pale. 17 species have accepted your guidance. 17 species have surrendered their weapons, disbanded their militaries, and trusted the assembly to protect them. And what happened to those species? Turned slowly, meeting the eyes of representatives throughout the chamber. They became servants, client states, colonies in all but name. They gave up their ability to defend themselves, and now they exist at the mercy of powers that do not value their lives. "Those species prospered under our protection," Kella protested. They have access to technology and resources beyond their own capabilities. They have access to what you allow them to have. They eat what you permit them to eat. They live where you decide they may live. They have no voice in this assembly. They have no vote on matters that affect their own worlds. They are slaves who have been taught to call their chains bracelets. Silence, complete and absolute. Continued. You watched Earth for 10,000 years. You saw our wars, our famines, our plagues, our failures, and you laughed. You called us primitive. You called us a zoo exhibit, a joke. She stepped forward, and even the admiral who had earlier shifted backward. Perhaps we were primitive. Perhaps we still are by your standards, but every wound taught us something. Every war sharpened us. Every tragedy made us more determined to survive. You thought our conflicts were weakness. You were wrong. They were our education. Ambassador Kella found her voice. You killed 400 warships. You have made an enemy of the most powerful military force in the galaxy. We defended ourselves against an invasion, replied. If that makes us enemies of the Imperium, then so be it. We have been making enemies since we crawled out of caves and learned to throw rocks. We are still here. Many of those enemies are not. She turned to face the full assembly now. Her voice rose, carrying to every corner of the crystal halls. You asked who declares war in this galaxy. The offer guidance that becomes control. The offer conquest dressed as order. The assembly offers membership that becomes servitude. Everyone in this chamber plays games with the lives of weaker species, deciding who rises and who falls, who lives and who dies. His eyes were hard now, uncompromising. Humanity does not declare war. We do not seek conflict. We do not want your guidance, your protection, or your membership if it means surrendering what makes us who we are. But understand this, all of you. If you come to our world with weapons drawn, if you try to take from us what is ours, if you treat us as primitives to be managed and controlled, you will learn what every enemy in human history has learned. She paused. The chamber held its breath. We do not declare war. We end them. That is not a threat. It is a promise written in 10,000 years of blood and fire. We are the species that refuses to kneel. We are the species that rebuilds from ashes. We are the species that survives no matter the cost. Sat down. The silence stretched for a long, long moment. High Arbiter was the first to move. He floated to the center of the chamber, his crystalline form pulsing with ancient light. The Shen Collective recognizes Earth's delegation, he said formally. We recognize humanity's right to self-determination and self-defense. We call for an end to all hostilities and the beginning of genuine diplomatic relations. Other voices joined his. Small species, client states, worlds that had accepted guidance and regretted it, worlds that had watched the battle of Earth and seen something they had forgotten existed. Hoping. The vote was not unanimous. The abstained, the left the chamber in anger. But when it was done, Earth had a seat at the table, not as a client state, not as a managed primitive, as an equal. One watched the vote from behind's chair. His hands were steady now. His heart was calm. They had come so far from that night in the monitoring station when he first saw the shimmer near the moon. Jin leaned close. We did it. We did, one agreed. But this is just the beginning. The will not forget, the will not forgive. We have made powerful enemies today. Then we will face them, like we always have. On Earth, people watched the broadcast of the assembly vote. Streets filled with celebration. Children who had grown up fearing alien invasion now looked at the stars with different eyes, not with fear, with pride. Ho stood on the bridge of his flagship, orbiting high above the planet he had defended. He watched the blue world turn slowly beneath him and thought about all the humans who had fought and died throughout history. They had fought each other. They had fought disease and famine and disaster. They had fought the darkness of space and the indifference of the universe, and now they had fought the galaxy itself. They were still standing. Returned to Earth 2 weeks later. She found One and Jin waiting for her at the landing site. The three of them stood together in the Korean sunlight, looking up at a sky that now felt larger and more dangerous than before. "What happens now?" Jin asked. Smiled. It was the first time she had smiled in months. "Now we grow, we learn, we prepare for whatever comes next. The galaxy knows we exist. The galaxy knows we will not kneel. That is enough for now." One nodded slowly. "And if they come again? Then we will be ready, like we always are, like we always will be." The three of them walked together into the future. Behind them, the stars watched. But now, the stars knew something they had never known before. Humanity was awake, humanity was unafraid, and humanity was here to stay. The galaxy would never laugh at Earth again.